Hey, what's up guys? It's this kid and we're going to go over the Windwalker Monk Mage Tower challenge today. And so again with these videos, the goal is to just make it as easy as possible so that if you don't really play the spec or you don't really play the class at all, you can go in there and still get it done within a few tries, maybe 10, 20 tries if it's really taking you a long time. So first of all, the fight is much more of a mechanic check and less of a DPS check, so you really can go in there with any gear. I went with mostly 226 gear from Zereth Mortis, but you can go in with whatever, but I will say make sure to get your stuff enchanted. As far as enchants go, if you have two weapons, you want to go with Celestial Guidance on the main hand, Sinful Revelation on the offhand. And then if you just have a two-hand, you just want to get Sinful Revelation on there. Eternal Stats is always really good on your chest, but you can also do Eternal Skirmish. For your cloak, you want to do Soul Vitality. For your rings, you want to do either 16 Versatility or 16 Critical Strike. And then if you do have the option to get some gems in your gear, you want to pretty much just get as much agility as possible. So you want to get like the Kraken's Eye, you want to get the Leviathan's Eye of agility, all those kinds of things. Just max out agility basically if you have the options to get gems. As far as consumables go, like I said before, this is less of a DPS check and more of a mechanics check. So you can go with consumables and I'll list them all out here, but you don't necessarily need those to get through the fight. So for your flask, you can go with Spectral Flask of Power. This is actually the most valuable because it's going to stay on even if you die. For food, you're going to want to go with Feast of Gluttonous Hedonism. With weapons, I went with Shadow Core Oil, but you can also go with Shaded Weight Stone or Shaded Sharpening Stone. For drums, you want to go with Drums of Deathly Ferocity. And for a potion, if you want to use that, you can go with Potion of Spectral Agility. The last thing is going to be the runes, so you want to go with Veiled Augment runes for those. As far as talents go, again, I wanted to make this as easy as possible for new players, so you can go with Eye of the Tiger for your level 15 talent, Chi Torpedo for 25, 30 you're going to go with Ascension, 35 is going to be Good Karma. This is very, very important to go. This is pretty much essential. You can't really go without it. Level 40 you're going to go with Diffuse Magic, 45 is going to be Dance of Chi Ji, and 50 is going to be Whirling Dragon Punch. So some of these you can kind of mess around with, see what you like, but Good Karma is for sure going to be the most important by far. The reason for that is typically Touch of Karma is just going to block a bunch of damage and then redirect it to the person that you blocked it from. But in this case, now that you have Good Karma, it's also going to heal you. So a lot of damage that's coming in from these bosses, you're going to block it, and then you're also going to heal yourself for the same amount of damage. Now I'll show you specific times to use Karma, but we'll get into the fight in just a second here. So the fight starts out and you're going to right away be fighting Tugar Blood Totem. He is a Tauren, and then Jormog the Behemoth is going to be the Big Worm. So right away, Tugar is going to have a few abilities that he's going to cast. One is going to be Fell Burst. This is by far the most important, and you have to interrupt it every single time, no matter what. So the next ability is going to be his totem that he puts up in the room. It charges up a cast, and at the end of the cast, it's going to stun you. You want to kill this as soon as possible as well, because if it stuns you, and then he casts Fell Burst, you're dead as well. So what you have to do for this is you can either right click it, just melee it, or you can do one tick of lightning, that's going to kill it as well, but keep an eye out for this throughout the whole fight. Jormog, the Big Worm, is going to do a couple things as well. The main thing is going to be Sonic Scream. And with Sonic Scream, you want to either paralyze it or you want a Karma if it's off cooldown. Try and paralyze as much as possible on Jormog, but if you aren't able to do that, you might just have to tank it, and that's totally fine. You don't have to worry about it that much. The main thing you have to worry about still is going to be that Fell Burst. Again, every single time Fell Burst comes off cooldown and he starts using it, use your Interrupt Spearhand Strike. Or you can Leg Sweep, or you can Paralyze. Just make sure that he does not get a cast of that off, because that is more than 100% of your health for sure. One other thing you can also try for tanking Fell Burst if your kick is off cooldown is you can use two of your defensive abilities at the same time to try and tank it. I definitely wouldn't recommend it, and I didn't try it myself to see if I could get through it, but most of the time I would just recommend using kick every single time it's up, only for Fell Burst. For the most part, that is all of their abilities for phase 1. What you want to do is keep looking at both of their cast bars just to see when they're doing certain things, because you have to fight them at the same time and kind of cleave them down. One thing that you will notice though is that Jormog is going to have 9 stacks of a buff in phase 1, and this is something that you're going to need to be breaking down throughout the next phases. So about 30 seconds into phase 1, when you're fighting both of them together, Jormog is going to go underground and you're going to be just fighting Tugar the Tauren. At this point, there's a couple things that you want to look for. First of all, Tugar is going to be able to cast his totem ability now, so you want to keep looking around the room for that totem to just lightning it. The next thing is Jormog is going to be rolling around in a little dirt pile, and you want to avoid him as much as possible. The next thing is 3 boulders are going to fall from the sky, and you don't want to stand near those when they're dropping because you will take a lot of damage, and I'm pretty sure this is going to one-shot you as well if you're under those boulders. Also, there's going to be eggs that are going to spawn during this phase. They're going to spawn right near the boulders. So what you want to do is Tiger Palm and Spinning Crane kick these down. You want to kill them as best you can, but if they do spawn, they're going to take the health of the egg. So if they're already low at 20, 10% or whatever, the worm is going to take that health. So you should be able to kill them pretty easily at that point, and it's not going to be much of a big deal anyway. I will say at this point, don't tunnel vision these eggs. Still keep an eye out for the fell bursts that are going to be coming in throughout the fight and make sure to interrupt those as well. Now the main point of this phase, aside from interrupting fell bursts and aside from killing worms, is trying to make Jormog hit some boulders. And what's going to happen throughout the fight is Jormog is randomly going to charge straight for you. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you are either in between him and a boulder, or you want to make sure you're on the other side of the boulder so that when he charges in a straight path and he hits that boulder. What's going to happen when he hits the boulders is it reduces one of the stacks that we were talking about earlier, and that allows you to do more damage to Jormog. Eventually, once his stacks are at 0, you can hit him normally. And the whole goal of this fight is to hit both of them down to 0 at the same exact time. If you hit one of them to 10% and the other is at 0, the other one is going to be doing a ton more damage for that whole 10%. So the goal overall is to get them both down at the exact same time, so you really don't have to deal with any of those damage buffs. One last thing that I did want to mention is that Tugar is also going to be doing this ability called Earthquake, and Earthquake is going to be kind of this cross pattern, and that pattern is going to do a lot of damage. You don't want to stand in that before or even a little bit after it happens, because there are going to be some resonating effects. So it's going to be there for about 1 or 2 seconds, and then it's going to crumble. You want to be away from that so you don't take a ton of damage, because it does do a good amount of damage, but it's not going to one-shot you. So anyway, after phase 2, you're going to go back to phase 1. Jormog is going to come above ground, and he's going to be casting Sonic Scream. He's going to keep those same stacks that he's had this entire time. So overall, you just want to keep lowering those stacks in phase 2. And then when he comes above ground, DPSing him down when he's above ground, along with Tugar. Make sure again to keep paralyzing him once he's casting Sonic Scream or once Paralyze is off cooldown, or if you get really low, make sure to use Karma on Sonic Scream. And of course, be sure to keep watching out for those fell bursts and interrupting those, and using lightning on those totems when they spawn. So eventually you're going to be able to get Jormog's stacks all the way down, and be sure to keep hitting him when he's up. Keep using all of your cooldowns basically on Jormog when you're fighting the 2 of them. You're just going to be fighting Tugar so much, and he's going to take a lot of residual damage that you really don't need to use any cooldowns on him. So be sure to be using most of your stuff on Jormog when he's up, since you have such a limited time to fight him. One last thing I'll say is do not be scared to use Vivify and Expel Harm a lot on yourself throughout this fight. I had periods where I was just doing that for about 10 seconds or so, not doing anything else. And that's totally fine. It's a long fight. You take a lot of damage. But I will say, no matter what, you have to interrupt every fell burst. I died so many times to just missing one fell burst, or maybe an interrupt was on cooldown or something like that. Either interrupt, leg sweep, paralyze, use multiple defensive cooldowns. Just make sure that you do not have to deal with one of those fell bursts. And the final thing that I will remind you about is use Touch of Karma whenever you are really, really low and Jormog uses Sonic Scream. Be sure to Touch of Karma and it's going to heal you back up to full. You don't need to worry about anything. It's super, super nice and pretty much keeps you alive throughout the fight. But that is about it. If you guys have questions or anything, please let me know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe and all that cool stuff. But yeah, have a good rest of your day. See ya.